Okay, good evening, everyone. This is the Community Preservation Committee for December 18th, 2024. We have a quorum. We'll start. And just to remind everyone that we are being recorded. We're not live, but we are being recorded on LCTV. So anything that you say and your likeness will be recorded. So if it's not something you want, you can choose to leave. Our first thing is news, mails, and minutes. The only news I had, got a note from Maren Toohill, the planning board, about the Littleton Bridge preservation. Did you get this?
Yeah, I looked it over quickly. I haven't
Yeah.
read it through. I have to read it over
It's
again.
for the Route 119 Great Road over 495 up by the point. This was addressed to the Community Preservation Committee. And it says that the Mass DOT is proposing to preserve the bridge, which is L13-030, that carries Route 119 over 495 in Littleton through a full deck replacement. The total project limits extend approximately 520 feet along Route 119, including an estimated 100 feet beyond both ends of the bridge. The bridge was originally constructed in 1960 and has gone through at least 2 rehabilitation projects, most recently in 1988. Design and construction standards have evolved since the bridge was originally built. The latest inspection occurred on October 10th, 2022, and the super and substructures were in satisfactory condition, but the bridge deck and deck joints were recommended to be replaced. The assessment of the different bridge component conditions have led to the proposed project to include a full deck replacement with new bridge barrier and curbing, new sidewalks on both sides, and repair and repainting of existing bridge beams. There will be limited highway work, including curbs, guards, and pavement and sidewalk reconstruction to meet the existing conditions. The current traffic lane configurations will be maintained with compatible traffic management elements. The proposed improvements will extend the life of the bridge and increase the safety for users crossing over 495. Mass DOT appreciates your perspective and welcomes your input regarding the proposed project. For CPC, I don't really see, I mean, it's not like we're going to.
Like a mass.
It's all.
It is, it went to a number of committees, but they specifically sent it to us. So
The, one of the things that is going on with that might be part of that project is apparently the culvert that was originally built in 495 was, built, is not functioning properly. So the groundwater on this side of 495 is about 2 feet higher than it should be. And it's 2 feet lower than it should be on the other side of 495. So this is really the result of a new stormwater, new flood maps for the whole town. And so that might become part of that project.
but still, we wouldn't ever use CPC
No.
for it, so.
I mean, that may impact something else. I don't know.
The more important project is the next bridge down 119 over Beaver Brook and starting surveying that. So that's also going to be redone.
Well, we need more traffic lanes, so.
That's from 1920.
What's the
Right.
name of the
20.
bridge? Yeah, that we got the mailing on?
You can give this, it's the one over 495, it's bridge L-13-030. So I've read it into record, but I don't think there's anything that we need to respond to. Yeah, I mean,
I guess more.
like I say, we wouldn't give them any money anyway. I did send out again the draft minutes from October 16th. Did anyone, Linda?
I have a few comments. We always have comments on it.
Well, that was a pretty important meeting.
Yes, it was. So, couple of comments on number 2, member updates. So supposedly Jeff said,
It's
12
not occupied.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think we should delete
Yeah,
that
that's
or,
fine. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
all right, is that clear, Mitt? It's,
I'm not there,
all
sorry.
right,
I made a note.
I don't have a copy.
that's all right. Carolyn, are you following?
Yeah,
this? All
I
right.
have it in front
All
of me,
right, so
I'll make
take
that.
out N is occupied.
Okay,
On number 3, just above the word funding, says address multiple plans such as open space / recreation. I believe it only addresses recreation. Should we delete open space?
I think it was meant the open space and recreation plan.
Ah,
Yeah, I think that's right.
yes, okay.
Okay.
Maybe could we add the word plan at the end?
Yeah.
And then, yeah. Okay, and then, on the second page, number 4A1, says Linda asked if. So I think I can fill that in.
Okay,
Linda asked if this project is CPC eligible based on maintenance not being covered by CPC. That's it.
Perfect. That's just about everything that I had. I was just gonna add, we didn't have the adjournment time, and I'm actually missing as well. Missing.
The only comment I had was, I thought we approved or voted in the code of conduct, but I think that was at the last meeting, yeah.
I'll have to watch it and see how long it took us to. Adjourn it. I'll get the time and send it to you.
Oh, that was October. November was our record time one. 59 minutes and 50 seconds, so, but I don't know about the one that we're doing that now.
Yeah, this one was long. This one was the one like 9:30 or something. I'll look at it and I'll just send you these corrections.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Is that it?
We have, I brought paper copies if you want to look at November's, but it's got to be draft form. It's got question marks and blank spots. So
Why don't we take them home with us and do them next time?
it gives everybody a chance, sure, if you want to go old school, take a copy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can we get a motion to approve these?
With as amended or as corrected.
Second,
We have a motion to accept the minutes as amended by Saul, second by Linda. I think we're all here, so we can just do it. All in favor? Opposed? Oh, great, thank you. All right, next on the agenda. Some projects on. Oh, were there any other member updates? Any of them?
Only that the architect's contract for the tennis courts and baseball fields was approved at the select board meeting Monday. That is moving,
On schedule.
not really.
Okay.
There was a bit of a struggle with some of the contract language.
Next up, we have the Historical Society there are 2 projects. I have to recuse myself, so Andrew, will you take over?
Certainly.
I only have. That's the eligibility for that one, and I don't have the one that Andrew had.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
I'll just get one out.
All right. So our first project under the Historical Society for tonight is the Houghton Memorial Building Front Door Restoration Project. Tonight, we're going to be reviewing the eligibility and funding applications for that project. So Andy, did you want to give the board a summary of what the Historical Society is?
Or do you want me to meet this bigger?
If you can actually pull a chair, maybe, if that would be, or maybe the front row, that works. So the microphone can.
Okay. I think you all got a copy of this, but I'll just sort of read it. We've just completed the restoration of all 54 windows in the Houghton Memorial Building, expecting that they will now last many more years. The beautiful arched double front door has been repainted many times. Someone described it as being held together by layers of lead paint. The building is one of only 3 historical register sites in Littleton, designed originally in 1895 as a library to be the crown jewel and cultural center in Littleton's geographical center. The building is sturdy as well as stunningly beautiful inside and out. We hope it will remain a town treasure forever. The doors will be brought to the shop, where they will be taken down to bare wood, repaired, painted, and replaced in the door frames, which will be similarly treated in situ. A temporary door and frame will be put in place for the duration of the project so we can have access to the building. This continues the dedication the society has to the Houghton Memorial Building. We have already paid for the basement waterproofing, replaced and upgraded the HVAC system, and contributed over $50,000 to the window restoration project. The company, Early American Restoration, who did the windows, I did get a quote from them, $11,376.41. A lot of that though is the doing the fake door on the outside. They have to make like an entryway because otherwise we have no way of getting in the building, nor does anyone else. Which is sort of a pain, but that's how it has to be done. I didn't get any other estimates, but I did talk to a friend of my brother's does this kind of work in Boston. And he looked it over and I told him what Early American Restoration was proposing and what it would cost. And he said, if you're happy with this company and happy with their work, he said, go with it. He said, because you're not going to find any price lower than this. So I thought that was interesting. He didn't want it himself. He didn't want it. Anyway, I think it will be done in, I think they said about 2 months it would take them to do it. And then it would, be in keeping with the windows and it would be restored. When you can't replace the door, it would have to be restored, and putting another coat of paint on it, I don't think is gonna really work. Any questions?
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for Andy?
So it's sort of the last piece in finishing the exterior.
Yes, all the windows are done and it will be,
But you've also done the roof,
the roof was done
right?
a few years ago, this late. Yeah, that was, I think we did get something for that. We didn't.
Well, regardless of the CPC, I mean, the society is.
It's been done.
Yeah, so you're taking care of the exterior of the building.
Yes.
It's a very well taken care of building, and we thank the society as always, for looking out for it. Does anybody have any follow-up questions?
The only thing I wonder about is if as they start taking the layers off, if they find damage or other things or rot or.
They'll repair it. That's
Okay.
what they have done with the windows.
Okay.
They take the windows out and they take them back to their shop and they put them in what they call the pizza oven. And it melts, rather than having to sand all the, lead paint off, it melts it. And then if there's something that's broken, they would fix it. And then when they're done with it, it looks like it would have when it was new.
Right.
And the doors, I guess, are particularly hard, because they're arched. And, you can't actually, it would be almost impossible to replace them because to make something,
Fit back the way.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, and the other thing I have here is a piece of, it's a document. It was,
Oh, wait, let's vote on this
Yeah,
one.
we assume separately.
Oh, I thought you talked about it another time.
Oh, yeah, no worries. So what we'll do is we'll consider this project first and then we'll discuss the second project.
Okay.
I have a couple of minor comments on this. I think there's a couple of corrections. One is on the table where it says, acquire, create, preserve, support, rehabilitate. Acquire, preserve, and rehabilitate are checked off. I think acquire should not be checked off.
Yeah, because you're not acquiring a historic resource, you're preserving it.
And then the other,
Wait a minute. On your,
this table,
oh, whoops, you're right.
and then the other correction is in the write-up. You said the building is one of only 3 historical register sites. It's not called the Historical Register, it's called the National Register of Historic Places.
Okay, sorry.
So, that's all I have.
Okay. I think so.
What are the, so we have the Rosewoods house,
Field bearing ground.
okay,
And this.
Do we have any other questions or comments for the applicants?
Yeah, what is the dollar amount
It's,
requested? And are we considering the eligibility request and application for funding in tandem?
So what we can do is, the amount being requested is $11,376.41.
Can we repeat that, please?
Sure, it's $11,376.41.
Thank you.
And, we have before us an eligibility request and a funding application.
Is that amount the exact amount that the,
That was what they gave, I asked them about it this summer, and that's the quote he gave me then. So it's possible that it might be more than that, but we haven't actually talked about it, but in my mind, if it was a little more, we could probably come up with a difference, but I don't know. I mean, because I have to give you what it is now, and I don't know what it is now.
do we have to do?
Sorry.
Do we have to only approve the exact amount, or do we have any flexibility there?
We could bump it up a little bit if necessary at the request of the applicant, if you wanted to amend your application, perhaps a little bit, but if the society would be willing to kick a little bit in, if there's,
Yeah, I just don't know how much it would be. I mean, it might be the same, I don't know. But since he gave it to me in like July or something, it just seemed reasonable that everything goes up. I don't know.
Since we don't have a number, I think we should go with what was proposed, because we don't know what the new number would be.
I mean, I didn't want to hold it up because I didn't know, and then have to go get it and then have to come back and.
Yeah. Are you comfortable with that figure tonight? If, let's say down the road in a couple of months, once the work is, let's say this project gets approved tonight, it goes to town meeting, the funds become available July 1st. Do you think it would potentially take more funding than the 11,376 potentially? Or is that?
Well, what if we, it still has to go to town meeting, right?
Yes, yeah.
Can we leave it at this and bump it up when we get closer to town meeting, if that's the case?
We would have to revote the project before town meeting.
The whole, right,
Which we could potentially do. It's really up to you how you want to proceed with the project. If you'd like us to approve it at that amount tonight and then perhaps see what comes out, we can certainly do that.
what do you think, Fred? Yeah. Do that, approve it at the amount it is, and then, I mean, maybe it's gonna be $50 more.
well, the advantage is you then go to your vendor and say, we have this amount of money. And it would be a negotiating point. The other thing I was gonna suggest you could think about is maybe both, adding an amount that is a contingency, which is typical in all building projects. I don't know if that's necessary for a project like this.
That's kind of where my head was, that you're gonna find, you tear something that old apart, you're gonna find something.
I've got a feeling that it's not.
Maybe they have that built in and.
The materials they used in 1895 are so far superior than what we have now. It may be perfectly sound, whatever. You have to have a starting point.
Well, and they expect that they're going to find, they don't expect that it's going to be perfect, I think, so they may be built into their estimate a little, I don't know. Or we could ask for more, and then if it was less, we could give it back. If the people do that.
Any unused funds do go back into that particular bucket. So for this project, it's a historic project. So if there was any excess, it would get returned after the completion.
Well, what if we ask for 12?
I have no problem with that.
And then if it was,
Yeah, so we could amend your application tonight for 12 and,
and then if it ended up that was too much, we just give it back.
that works. How do people feel about,
I would say in general about cost of it, that in my professional experience, that seems really like a good price. And a new, a reproduction door would cost far, far more than that. So, I think that it's a responsible approach.
Do we need to vote on it?
Essentially.
Since the applicants have amended it, we can consider everything as a whole once, we're done discussing it and go from there. Are there any other questions or comments, from the board? Any questions or comments from the audience? All right, would somebody perhaps like to make a motion?
I can make a motion to approve the eligibility request and funding request in the amended amount of $12,000. You want to do them separately?
Yeah, let's do them separately.
Make a motion to approve the eligibility request for the student building front door project.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it's unanimous. All right, the eligibility is settled, so why don't we tackle the funding application now?
Make a motion to approve the funding application with the amended amount of $12,000 for the front door project.
Do we have a second?
So should we stipulate the bucket or in this?
From-
Oh, yes,
From the
yes.
historical.
Okay,
level.
I second.
The historic reserve for the record. And we have a second, Jeff. Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right.
The other item I have here is a, Jonathan Whitcomb, otherwise known as Jonathan Whitcomb Officers Commission. It's a document that was in our, we're requesting $3,910. And it was a document found in our, in the stuff we already had, and we think somebody gave it to us in 1896.
1896.
It's an officer's commission to Jonathan Whitcomb. It appoints Jonathan to be the ensign of the foot company within the town of Littleton. It's approximately 13 by 16 inches and it's extremely brittle and fragmented. There is a picture of it in here with, in the packet that you got. We asked Northeast Document Conservation Center, NEDCC, for recommendations on a conservation treatment. They recommended dry cleaning, aqueous treatment, humidity and wash, sides with gelatin tree mend tears, and fill losses with toned Japanese paper and wheat starch paste. NEDCC also recommends digital imaging to create a faithful surrogate so that the original document can be stored safely with minimum handling. Just a little background, the Whitcombs have resided in and contributed to Littleton since the mid-1600s. Many still live among us. The Whitcomb homestead has been at 169 Whitcomb Ave since 1707. Jonathan, who lived 1690 to 1767, was a huge contributor to this town. He was a farmer, a selectman, a shoemaker, sealer of leather, surveyor of highways. The fact that we have his almost 300-year-old rare officer commission document is pretty miraculous and deserves a restoration. It's old, you know, it's, I don't know. I also have a full disclosure here, which is that Jonathan Whitcomb is my great grandfather, but we didn't know each other. And I didn't even know it until we were doing this. Does anyone have any questions about this?
And there are paper copies of the application over here too, if anybody wants to look at the.
So the amount,
We took it to the NEDCC and they appraised it.
They gave the recommendations of what we listed here to do.
you know, but then would they do the
Oh,
work?
yes.
Oh, I see, okay.
They're sort of like the only place around that does stuff like that.
Okay.
You know, historic things
Mhm.
that like they're well known everywhere for their work.
Do the committee members have any other questions? It really is a special document. When I first saw it, when Susan emailed the application, was amazed that we even have it, you know, 300-year-old's mission of such an important figure in town. I did nerd out a little bit. But yeah, it sounds like a great project and really money well spent to preserve such an important document to the town.
Is there, after the preservation is done, how is it stored or handled, or where will it be?
Our upstairs is climate controlled and we have other documents that we store up there, like newspapers and stuff like that. And,
I was gonna also ask them if we should frame it, because we have some other things that have been framed. That would be a better presentation.
I think it would be great if the townspeople had the opportunity to see it, perhaps after the project's done, to, you know, put maybe something at the museum, just saying, you know, CPA funded and give them an opportunity to view it. Because I think a lot of people would be interested in stopping by and seeing it once it's conserved.
I think it's great. We have a long history, but we don't have much to show for it. In the present day, and this is, you know, pretty notable.
Any other questions for our applicants? All right, any questions or comments from the audience? All right, well, with that being said, would anybody perhaps like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the eligibility application for the Jonathan Whitcomb Officers Commission Preservation document.
Do we have a second?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? It's unanimous. All right.
thank you.
And do we only have the eligibility? There's no funding application, is that right?
Right.
Okay, so you're gonna submit that at some point? Yeah.
We
Perfect.
didn't know whether to do it in stages, but
It's fine.
So
Plenty
the,
of time.
yeah,
yeah, that's what we.
so the committee's next meeting, I believe, will be the 14th? Am I thinking about that correctly?
Third Wednesday in January.
Third Wednesday, which I believe, double check my calendar here. Hard to believe it's almost the end of December.
15.
The 15th. So we'll be meeting next on the 15th, and I believe that'll be our last meeting before the close of the warrant, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, February, okay, perfect. So, so yeah, if you could have that funding application to us by then, we can take it up at our next meeting.
Do we just have to pass it in or do we have to be here for it?
How do the committee members feel, unless there's a substantial change to the project, perhaps?
Is it so awful to come?
No,
You don't have to answer that.
this committee I can think of, I know all of you and I like you.
That's good. Bring us cookies next time. No, I think we talked about it tonight. If you just sent it in, we would look at it. I think that's an okay way to go.
Perfect.
Great.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming down tonight and
All right, thank you.
There's no agenda item as well, or is that?
so, that was added after for the historical commission.
Okay.
Welcome back. Have a good night, Susan.
Mandy, was that on your mother's side or your father's side?
Mothers. Yeah, when we moved to town, we didn't know that we were victims, we just moved here, we came from Brooklyn, and then all of a sudden, my great aunt had done this huge fan chart. And there we were, being victims.
Wow.
Okay.
Have a great night.
Okay, so next on the agenda is the Track Association. Mark Rombacher is here to give us a little introduction as to what this is all about.
Hi, Mark Ehrenbacher speaking as a private citizen. The track over at Russell Street was built approximately 15 years-ish ago. Not using CPC funds, they weren't eligible for that type of project at the time. The track is going to be in need of a resurfacing in the next couple, either this year or next year. I'm not submitting the application, that will be coming from the school. I'm here representing the track organization, which has run the road race in town for the past 16 plus years, raising money to support the track. I've had conversations with Carolyn and Ryan and different people that if the track, to check to see if the track would be eligible for the resurfacing would be eligible for CPC funds. And if so, if the track organization, we can donate the money we raise to the CPC to help offset the cost, and then we can take advantage of the state matches. So a few years ago, we donated some money that's sitting in an account with the school. They have like $40,000 we donated in the past. We may be able to donate. I don't know what the exact amount we'll be able to donate through the CPC. It's probably somewhere between $20,000 and $40,000. But if you guys have a rough determination that the project is eligible, then I will work with the track organization to figure out how to get a check through the CPC for this. But I wanted to come in, make sure that we're all talking the same language before we issue a check and can't get the project funded.
Is there a ballpark for the cost?
So just the resurfacing is $160,000, I think. There's talk of a couple of improvements they want to make. I don't know if they'll come in with the same project. They want like a javelin throwing area and some extra support for the pole vault, which wasn't in the original project. I have no idea what the cost of those are. I don't know if they're coming in together or separately. But just at 160, the track organization paid for approximately half through the money that we raised in road races over the years. So.
Oh, perfect. Is there kind of like a rough idea of how much the resurfacing itself would cost?
About 160, 170 is the quote that I saw, in the past few months, so. There's not a lot of organizations that do this, so. It's a lot higher than we were originally anticipating, but. If you go over there, you can see that the surface is starting to crack. The track coach, Casey Coldenberg, has been doing repairs at various points where like, you'll see like 2x4-inch sections that just were pulled up and he goes and glues them back down.
Oh, wow.
The area that is typically the worst is where they run the 100-meter dash, where they have the starting blocks. The starting blocks end up ripping up a lot of the surface. They're switched to different kind of blocks to try and minimize some of that going forward, but there's also talk, I don't know if it will is included in this project or something else, of like the inside of the track doesn't have like a berm around it in the same way, so they might be doing a little bit to help the drainage around there and help preserve it at the same time, so. I don't know if that's part of the cost estimate. I haven't been involved in most of that, I just help with the road race and on that side, so.
So you are here on behalf of the track association to determine how we feel of whether this would be an eligible.
So if it's an eligible project, when it comes to you guys, we can donate the funds to you at any point, once we vote, our board votes. If the project is eligible, then we hope that when it comes to you, you at least support the amount that we donated. You can determine if you want full eligibility or someone else is covering the rest. But we are in a position that we can donate money to help support this. And if we donate it through you rather than through the school, we get the match. So our money, even at the worst case, our money grows by 10% just by going this direction.
So Saul, this is a competing,
Recreation project?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a recreation project. I think seems eligible to me. I just did a quick look in the database and there are a couple of track resurfacing projects in there, so other towns have done.
but I guess I'm pointing out that we just gave a lot of money to the, for other things, and which sort of washed out a lot of that bucket. And I know the bucket will, but I'm also hearing that it's not like an imminent thing that has to be done this year.
I don't know. I'm not in putting the application in. I will not be involved in that at all. I don't know if the school department plans to put it in for this year or the following year. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess certainly from the recreation side, I'm fully supportive of funneling the money through the match and sending it back to the track that way. Beyond that, I think, the track is certainly a good recreational resource, and if we have the funds available, it seems like a valid and valuable project for the town.
Especially if they're kicking in a substantial portion of it. I mean, we definitely have $80,000 in the bucket. I think, I'm not really sure. We have maybe like about 450,000 in the recreation bucket, so plus we have the undesignated.
Undesignated.
So we certainly have, and we
Well,
get the match.
I don't know the current state of the track program, but when my kids were there, it was the envy of other
It's huge.
other schools, and Mark Saucer used to be approached by other coaches saying, like, what are you doing? And he says, I don't know, but it's been a great thing. And my elderly father, who visits from Southern California, loves that track because the track that he has to be on are crappy and he compliments it, so.
Well, that is the other thing too. It's not just the school kids that use the
Yeah.
track. It's also used for the seniors walk it and anyone else who wants a safe place to walk. So,
I was out, a couple days a week over the summer, and at 5 a.m. there were a half dozen people on the track.
Wow, 5 a.m.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's not so much this time of year.
I think we have at 6 AM and there's only two or three of us usually.
So we don't have a formal eligibility request, but I think what he's looking for is just the, you know,
Yeah,
straw poll. Yeah.
Is there, and is there any? Yeah, I think it's a slightly novel to have a funding source come from outside of. So I came up with this because you did something similar through the light and water donation from Montanari. Right. Property, so that's how this whole idea started percolating in my mind. Yep. That it was something that we could potentially do, so.
And the FinCom really encourages us.
And I think, didn't we talk about, or you talked, maybe it was even before I was on, I think it was the track. They were going to get a lot of, I mean, this was years ago. They were going to get some money to put through, or was it the playground or? Do you recall that, Matt? I think that was.
The track wasn't eligible at the time we built it. At the time the track was put in place, recreation was not an eligible CPC use. It might have been for the Castle and Trees renovation.
Yeah.
There's other examples, I mean, like, there's money that's been funneled through from developers to affordable housing, for example, too, so.
I have a question about the revenue in terms of, but I don't have an answer for that tonight, in terms of what is considered, what is coming into us as revenue. It would be great to have a gift, and I think it's allowed, but we just need to make sure that's true. In terms of eligibility, can I read some from the coalition?
Of course.
The coalition is a nonprofit that supports community preservation in Massachusetts, and we're a member. And their website talks about, is our project allowable? And in 2012 amendment to the CPA broadened the law around recreation to allow for the rehabilitation of existing outdoor recreational facilities. The amendment made it clear that with respect to land for recreational use, rehabilitation could include the replacement of playground equipment and other capital improvements to the land or the facilities thereon to make them more functional for their intended recreational use. And that is precisely what is being talked about here, it seems. So it doesn't, there's nothing, it doesn't have to be a certain ownership. It doesn't have to have a history of prior support being purchased or anything like that. It's just
Preserving that recreational resource.
And as Saul said, I looked in the database too, and there's some exact projects.
It would have been great if the track was eligible the first time around. It would have simplified so much of the hassle of getting the track approved, but.
And looking at last year's,
you do.
what we were expecting for last year, this was just based on the percentages. We gave recreation at 21% from the 1% surcharge and 15% of the state match funds. So we were expecting about 115 to come in revenue. So I would think it would be similar, if not a little bit more, this time, this year.
Right.
So it would be recouped in one
You
year.
don't see this coming in for this time?
I have no idea. That's not, we're the track organization. It's not putting in the application that will be coming from the school. I do not know if they're planning on putting it in for this year or next. I know it's coming soon. I just don't know how soon. They have their hands full with other things at the moment.
So I would say it sounds like consensus that we would tell them to go ahead and if they want to bring an eligibility request in with, some more, we can check that off. And then when they want to bring the funding in, they could bring it in the next year, however they want to do it.
Okay, so I will work with the track organization. They'll maybe come in at your next meeting and give you a big check.
But do we need
What we need to do for that.
Speaking of the money, do we need to confirm that we can accept gifts, or they have to go into the town coffers and then through, or can we accept the direct gift?
Yeah, we can talk to the FinCom, just to double check. I think,
So we've given a gift to the school before, so it's also possible that money can be moved as well. There's at least, it was 2 or 3 years ago that we gave them a $40,000 check in there. It's sitting in a track stabilization fund, for lack of a better. And that could potentially be moved over as well to get the
I'm just
match.
wondering if there's a,
But that I have no control or say over, because we already, donated that money. That would have to be the school.
yeah, but if it's just sitting there, we can sort of say, well, we heard there's money in your coffers.
So if this is something that the committee is okay with, I can work on getting
Yeah.
at least one, if not both sets of funding coming this way and let the school know the project will be eligible, and you can tell them what year that they, if you want it this year, or tell them to wait if you'd rather on the funding source. I don't know what their timeline is. That site's already going to be ripped up this summer, so maybe they want everything done at the same time.
But the question is, do we get the check in a big?
You want a big check?
Yeah, so I guess you have our blessing to move ahead.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Carolyn, do you think, there's a person that we should reach out to look into whether it's legal and most efficiently planned in terms of how the money streams?
I think we just talked to the FinCom, Steve Venuti and his team. Next time they have a meeting, they must be gonna have meetings soon.
They should be, and I think it could potentially function similar to the water department donation. Money was given to the water department, and then they entered into an MOU with the CPC on how that money would be spent. So I could imagine that if school has 40K sitting in a track account, we could enter into an MOU with them to basically dedicate that money towards the recreation bucket for the track project. And I think it would be a very easy way to just get that.
And the worst thing that could happen is that ultimately they say, no, you can't get the match, but
Right,
you would still have the money available for the project.
right, we would just split it with them, that is true.
And the one part that's a little different with the MOU, like when you did the water one, they wanted final say on the project. The track organization says it goes to the track. We're not gonna say this piece of this, as long as it's supporting track related activities, you guys can vote it. We're okay with that.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
So who will look into that?
I will, I'll email Steve. Then we'll start hearing from them soon anyway.
Well, word does seem to be trickling down about CPC and the matching.
All of a sudden, I know it, nobody knew about us for a long time. Historical Commission, Linda brought a bunch of projects with us, which I do have copies of those. If anybody is interested.
I love the compliment.
Different colors, or they look different. Because I could copy them on different colors. These are all the funding applications. Robinson Road outbuildings and two, that's a set. Those look like the eligibility, because those are the ones with the, yeah.
Okay.
This is another set.
If it's convenient, do you have the title of the project, the first one we heard tonight about the doors?
That's Houghton Memorial Building front door restoration.
Thank you.
So the first one is the Nagog Hill outbuildings.
Okay, so, yeah, so I submitted an eligibility and funding for all three of these. So for the Nagog Hill outbuildings, as you all know, there's an orchard committee in town. I don't know if they're active at the moment, but there has been a lot of discussion about what's going on at the orchard. So the actual structures themselves are not part of the agricultural preservation restriction. That's been, I've discussed that with the orchard committee, and I've discussed that with the head preservation guy at Mass Historical Commission. So we're quite clear on that. If any of the structures want to be preserved in the future, if the town decides to do that, that isn't decided right now. But if any of those structures, want to be preserved in the future, the first step is to get them into the MACRIS database. That's the state database of historic properties. I think two of the buildings up there are already in MACRIS. A third one we are working on right now to get into MACRIS. That's the main house that you see on the Godville Road. We're paying for that out of our historical commission budget for the preservation consultant to research that and write that up. And then there's 3 other buildings on the property, and that's what this application tonight is for. It would be for this historic preservation consultant to research and write up the survey forms for these 3 outbuildings. They are a cottage.
What is the cottage?
It's down,
You hardly see it, but it's down at the lower barn and a little further down, but if you're just driving by, unless you know where to look, you don't see it.
So it's in that complex of barn.
Of the lower,
the lower barn, the cottage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
okay.
where you park if you're gonna walk at the conservation land, the
Right.
Edvale Conservation is right across, kind of across the street.
Oh, okay, yeah, you did. It's not even in my head, yeah.
And then, this would also cover the main barn, the big barn.
Mhm.
So, so that's what this application is for. To make sure that all structures at that orchard are in the MACRIS database. We have, Littleton has like over 370 structures in that MACRIS state database now, and these should be in there.
And it's kind of step 1. It doesn't really preclude them from doing anything.
Right, but this doesn't put any restrictions right now on any of the structures. It just is step 1. It has to be, the structures have to be in this database if there's any future movement toward preservation.
And so where did you get the amount? Is that a,
I have an estimate from our consultant.
and is this one used at 12
Yeah.
Robinson and you're happy with?
We're thrilled with that.
Okay, good.
She's done a great job on researching the main house that she's working on now. Very interesting information she's uncovered about that. She's gone back to early 1800s or maybe before, up until now. She has all the deeds and all the history.
Any other questions about?
Just in terms of the timing, given that the site may go back into more intensive use in the spring, is if we're not doing this till next fiscal year, is that soon enough, or are we gonna be a little behind on?
I guess I don't understand the question.
Well, because if we approve, I mean, if this project gets approved, it's not gonna be funded until July of
Yeah,
25.
that's okay.
Okay,
Well, I think if we specify that it comes from the historic reserve, we can use the money that's already sitting in the bucket. It's when if you're proving it from the appropriation, like from the allocation for next year. Because sometimes with, the 10% that you put towards any bucket can either be funds or a project. But that can't go through to July 1st. But if you specify it's from the reserve, you can use the money that you've already collected. But you have to vote it in at town meeting as coming from the reserve.
Well, so it's still so it's not July 1st, it would be whatever time.
oh, it would be out of town.
Out of team,
Yeah, but it's still.
But I don't think there's,
It's still
I
May,
mean,
yes.
I think that's all in limbo, right? The disposition of the orchard or?
Yeah, that, it isn't, it's.
Well, anything anything would have to go through town meeting also.
No, the lease does not have to get there, I don't think,
The what?
the lease.
Mr. Ramsey.
But that wouldn't affect this project. This is just getting it into this database.
Okay.
And I guess the barn is not part of the lease, they're working on that, as from what I understand.
So who's leasing it?
It's a potted tree company in Brandfield, all right. Thank you. And it seems to be moving ahead, the select board was talking about finishing up before the end of the year, so. Open to comments from.
This one I am following, and so my understanding, subject to change, the volatile situation, but they, I believe, the potential lessee has expressed an interest in the barn, even though it's not originally presented in the proposed property to be leased. So there may be ongoing discussions. So with that, I would just encourage you that make them aware that this action is taking place, so that it can't be some sort of oversight with regard to the interest of getting into Macris and potentially that would at least be the starting point, which is, I think, what you're doing. If you're just saying, if we need to move quickly, we can at least cross the first hurdle in order to consider doing whatever we need to do. So I do believe, quite certain, there's going to be a public hearing should this be at least go forward from the Matthew and Mark were the town's officials who were negotiating. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think any of this affects this particular project. We have lots of private homes in this
My
database.
house.
So
No, actually, if we do want to put a preservation restriction on there, the time is probably coming soon, just.
oh, so you're saying, yeah, right. So then it would be good if we could do it right after town meeting, if we could use the reserve for that.
I guess, yeah, the other, I'm just thinking about this. Separate from this project, but we've done it for affordable housing and for conservation to have a small,
Like an action.
Sort
plan.
of like an enterprise fund, you know,
Yeah.
to take care of things that come up.
right,
That's something to consider, Linda.
things that are, timely, need to be done timely that we think are valuable to be funded through this.
That's a great idea.
Is that allowed?
It is allowed for some things, I don't know if it's allowed for historical.
See
So
what's
where does that,
precedent.
is that through the CPC or, yes?
Essentially, we provide, it's the same thing as.
Well, we've done it with Affordable Housing Trust, and they amassed quite a bit of money that's
Yeah.
really outside of the town meeting. And Amy Green wanted, it was a modest amount, it was like $30,000 or something, and not that she would even use it, but she wanted it. And it came up with the Webster property where they needed documentation and surveys and all this kind of thing that.
It's kind of these exact things that
Right,
we'd like to be
yeah.
able to do right away.
Interesting.
It's a good idea. If there's precedent, we can do it.
And so it's not like, I'm not sure Amy's even used it. I don't
I
know.
don't think we have.
I don't believe so, yeah. But it's there as a,
Yeah, we should look into that for sure.
and then I think it's required, it requires some board to be responsible for it and then report back
Right,
at
probably
the end of
the
the year.
historical commission, probably, yeah.
Right.
No, that's a.
I mean, do we have a conservation person on this? So maybe you need to make a report to us about how that
Oh,
money's
that's right.
been used, if at all.
We could probably do a report. I don't think,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying
Yeah,
immediately,
sure.
but probably we'd be doing.
At least quarterly to,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we should at least at the, I mean, we have Bartlett give us one for the it's one of those weird things at the beginning of the year. So even if you're reporting that you haven't done anything, at least it's entered into the record.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I can certainly check with Amy, tomorrow, and at our next meeting, we can get like a report. I don't think we've spent any money, because there haven't been any projects after Webster in terms of surveying
Right.
potential, acquisitions, but I'll give a thorough report at our next meeting.
Yes.
And we're considering eligibility tonight, at least.
Both,
And,
yeah.
I've been looking at the coalition site again, and it's just, there's a fine line to walk between what's allowed and what's not.
Mhm.
Because if it's, I forget what the verb is, it's either rehabilitation
Preservation.
or restoration. Acquire, preserve, rehabilitate / restore, right? One of those. They write, it may sound simple to do this, but many questionable project applications are submitted to CPCs. If the project does not fit the definition of one of these verbs, it's not eligible. In general, a rule of thumb is that the CPA can fund projects that deal with tangible historic resources, but not with historic interpretation, education, etc. General surveys are not allowed. General surveys, studies, and the like that are not connected to a specific CPA project may or may not be eligible, depending on the specifics of the request and the funding source used. When faced with such question, consult counsel. I think what that sort of suggests to me is that this is done ahead of time, and we don't know we don't know what the future holds for this property. So if it's not going to be a CPA project in the future, that tends to make it feel like it's less in support of a thing, because you want to make sure that your CPA dollars in this category are supporting the resource itself.
Well, we have used CPA funds for surveys in the past for getting forms into Macris. In fact, we used quite a bit of money. I think it was $20,000 for a broader survey, and yeah, so there is precedence for this.
Well, it's sort of the gateway to preservation.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, so and this could be, I mean, if you wanted more afraid of an audit, you could write, this is a precedent action to, preservation of these outbuildings or something.
Right, well, I have something in here. Inclusion in Macris is also the first of several steps in potentially having a structure become eligible for possible future historic preservation status. So, the head of preservation at Mass Historical Commission said, you got to do this first. You can't get preservation for these structures, and you got to do this first. So I feel like it qualifies.
And where it's a town building, it's kind of like a different layer to it. Like, I suppose like if it was a private building and we were maybe putting it in Macris and we're really sure if we were going to buy it down the road, that's a kind of a different story.
I think the pathway is to put, the preservation is probably putting preservation restriction on it at some point.
Yeah,
And we're moving, this is a step in the path to
Right.
that,
Right.
and which would fall under, seems like it would fall under the preservation part of eligibility.
Right, that's what I checked off was preservation.
Well, the example they gave of non-permissible ones were more like, it sounded like people were applying to have interpretive guides at historic sites or something like that.
Education.
But when it's part of a
Video.
physical, tangible thing, as they said, it's, I think it's could be permissible.
And other towns, there are towns in the database that have used them specifically to survey for Macris properties.
All right, I'm happy. I think I'd vote in favor of it. And thanks for being You serve as our own lawyer here.
Yeah, I know, it's
You
really.
just saved the town a bunch of money. Let's face it.
I was gonna say.
So we have,
By the way, I have a question for Linda. Just, in the minutes, I wanted to mention that you said the consultant has performed similar work for the Historical Society.
No, she's performed similar work for 12 Robinson Road.
For the town.
Yeah, for the town.
Commission.
Right, for the commission.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you were greatly satisfied with it.
Very, yes.
Thank you.
May I make a motion to approve the eligibility request for the historic consultant survey of the 3 outbuildings at Nagog Hill
Orchard.
Orchard?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the eligibility. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Thank you. And we have the funding application as well.
I provided more detail in the funding, but you guys have had it if you've had a chance to read it.
I move that we approve the application for funding for the, historic preservation consultant survey of the 3 outbuildings in Nagog Hill Orchard in the amount of $3,253.
It's sort of reserved.
Oh, yes, from the
historic
historic.
preserve. Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Again, it's unanimous.
Great.
12 Robinson Road.
Okay. So, as everyone is well aware, 12 Robinson Road has been rehabilitated. It's almost done. It's not quite done, but it's almost done. We use this consultant, this professional historic preservation consultant, for that project. That was the first project she's worked on for us. We're having her work on these other projects before us tonight, or we're proposing to have her work on these other projects. So for 12 Robinson Road, there's the application tonight is follow-up work by the consultant for post-rehabilitation. What that means is because the farmhouse, the historic farmhouse and barn have a preservation restriction on it in perpetuity. So whoever the owner is in the future has to abide by the preservation restriction. The property is anticipated to be sold this month, maybe, or next month, or go on the market anyway.
Yeah.
So we need help from this consultant. We've never done this before. So it was the first time we did the rehabilitation. The first time we were in the historical commission was the grantor in the preservation restriction, which means we're responsible for enforcing compliance with it. This consultant helped us immensely. She helped write the preservation restriction. So we are seeking her help in going forward with the new owner. How do we make sure that the new owner complies with the preservation restriction? She will talk to the new owner with us. She will do a site visit to make sure that the new owner understands what they have to do. She will write a template for us. So we have to conduct future annual or more inspections. And she will educate us as to how we make sure the preservation is continuously being adhered to. So that's what this application is for.
So many questions. I think it's a really good idea. I don't know how it fits in, if this goes to town meeting, they'll have them sold and closed before that. How does a buyer, what is a potential buyer? And when you go in there, it's clearly historic, like there's the original part is original hand grain, hand grained, wainscoting but, how, I mean, I don't know the answers. I just, I mean, to me, it's like a sort of a complicated real estate transaction. I know, how does it work with, that will be a condo ownership of the 4 units. How does it work with the condo documents? It's just complicated. I know Sherry Gould is doing the condo documents. I don't know if she's, thought about this at all or whatever.
I don't know. That's why we need help from a
Yeah.
person
no,
who's done this
definitely.
before. She is very experienced in preservation restrictions as consultant. And so, she'll get us going, and if we have questions, we can ask her in the future. But it's a legal requirement that
Yeah,
whoever
no,
owns
makes
this,
sense.
owns these 2 structures have to comply with this preservation restriction. So we need her help to help us comply
Right,
with
but
this legal document.
all this information is out in front of the sale. I mean, you can't have it come up.
Well, that's
behind, it's gotta be
what
out in front.
I'm scratching my head about is that.
I don't think it does though. I mean,
Yeah.
the conservation restriction has been
It is, it's true.
recorded. So a
Yeah.
person who's buying this property could go read it themselves and say, I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah,
And it's not, it may be very complicated, but it's not so complicated, I'm guessing, as to involve the condos and stuff like that. It has to do with the structure, the framing, the general look of a antique colonial.
Well, no, they have to keep certain features. They
Right.
have to keep certain exterior features, and they have to keep certain interior features that are in this restriction.
Right, they can't reframe it or knock down parts
They
or
can't take out
take,
mantles or
put in
fireplaces or other things.
bay windows and stuff like
They
that.
can't take out the windows, and original windows have to remain.
well, they're new windows, but they're done to a historic,
Well, the
Spec,
window
yeah.
frames are original.
Yeah.
Yeah. The windows themselves are new, but the frames are original. I forget what I was gonna say to.
But-
I
but
didn't
the-
say-
I mean, that information is out there for the buyer to know before they buy it, because some people aren't gonna buy it. Would they?
Right.
No, it's clear, it's a place that you would be really into the historic structures if you're gonna buy it. Not so much the barn, because the barn, they just recycled some posts.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Well, there's some
Yeah.
things in there, but yes.
Yeah.
But, it may involve the homeowners association, I agree. So that's another aspect of it. But, the state recommends that you make sure that you do annual inspections. You have to make sure that whoever owns it is adhering to it. So they can read through it and they could ignore it, or they could try to change things, or, we have to make sure they don't do that.
And it kind of behooves the historical commission to keep an eye out, and when the for sale sign goes up, you get to the real estate agent. I mean, I've heard that in other towns, you talk to the real estate agent, say, hey, do you know that this has a restriction on it? Because you're right, in 50 years from now, it's gonna be,
Well,
But-
it's an advantage in this case that it's the condo ownership, because the condo association will have an interest in keeping everything on the straight and narrow. And, selling.
that is true.
It really benefits the buyers too, because you'll have somebody administering a restriction that's very familiar with it, ins and outs, to protect them too from doing something that may not be allowed. So it's a win-win.
Well, I could say real estate agent downplaying it.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry.
You guys, you should go in there. You're not gonna.
No, I believe you that it's
You're
perfect.
into, I mean, this particular, the house part of it. Yeah.
I'm happy-
In fact, you guys should go in there.
I'm really
Yeah,
happy
I
to hear
can't
that.
wait.
Yeah.
Because I walked through it when it was for sale and had moldy ceilings and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And
You
since
should
then,
go look at it.
I'm really psyched to hear, yeah.
It's,
Yeah, I can't wait for the open house.
I wish I'd bought it for 200,000.
I don't know if I told you guys a story about the owners who sold it.
That's what the town paid.
Well, the owners gave the town a deal because they had a long lost aunt who died and dumped a whole bunch of money on that. And so they didn't feel they had to extract every last penny out of the property. And they just needed enough to set up a trust for their brother, who is brain damage from an accident. Anyway,
Is there a motion?
Not yet, yeah. So we have the eligibility. Anyone?
I'll make a motion that the committee approve the eligibility request for the 12 Robinson Road Preservation Restriction Adherence Consultant.
Second.
Sam, second, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Unanimous vote, thank you. And then funding,
I'll make a motion that the committee approve the funding application for the 12 Robinson Road Preservation Restriction Adherence Consultant.
I second.
we have a motion.
Oh, sorry, let me amend that motion to be taken from the historic reserve in the amount of $1,128. Thank you, Rob.
Okay, Andrew, can you repeat that motion?
Absolutely.
Just catching up.
So I'm gonna make a motion that the committee approve the funding application for the 12 Robinson Road Preservation Restriction Adherence Consultant to be taken out of the historic reserve in the amount of $1,128.
And you second, Jeff, and Jeff seconded it. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Again, unanimous. Thank you. And Linda, we'll one more.
One more, last one. We're seeking a historic preservation consultant for follow-up consultations for 260 Foster Street for the house and barn. That's the Durkee farmhouse. So the Affordable Housing Trust owns these two structures. They contacted us about possible, historic rehabilitation of the house and barn. And so we've been talking to them. Our consultant, the same consultant for 12 Robinson Road, went out and did a site visit at the 260 Foster Street at the house and the barn with the Affordable Housing Trust and
Bartlett was there and,
yeah, Bartlett was there, Anna was there. An architect who's worked with the town previously was there. Some other people were there. And we walked through and, and then she wrote up the consultant wrote up the results of her site visit, and what she thought was still existing historic and architectural significantly features of the house and the barn. And then I asked her to write recommendations. So she wrote recommendations for what she would suggest moving forward. Since that time, in the last couple of days, there's been further communication between me and the Affordable Housing Trust. They had a meeting last night, which I attended part of it. They're not sure what they want to do with the house. There are a couple of people on that housing trust think it would be too much work to rehabilitate the house, even if it wasn't historically, rehabilitation. They think it might be too much work to rehabilitate the house for affordable housing, period. But, the barn is still in play. The house may be in play. We don't know yet. And another part of this discussion is it looks like because the house and the barn were purchased by the town with CPC funds, they have to have a historic preservation.
Affordable housing restriction, I think.
Did the town buy it with no, it was given to.
No, it was given by the
to
developer.
town.
So it was bought by the town with like $1 in affordable with housing
It's $1.
CPA.
Oh, so
Yeah.
it came out of the trust CPA.
I see.
what they're holding
So
for?
it was
I believe
it was a result of the subdivision of Turkey Farm. And that the developer was more than happy to get it off this plate.
It was $1
Oh,
from
interesting.
CPC,
Oh,
and it was from the affordable housing.
It must be from their bucket, the money that.
Well, I don't know if this would
swirling.
apply if it's $1. I don't know if they have to.
CPA money, CPA money.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, maybe if it's,
Oh, interesting, I didn't notice that's how they do it.
right.
Sure.
So that's something that we're kind of looking into to seeing if that really is required. In any case, I think the historical commission would be involved with the barn. And depending on what they do with the house, maybe the house. So we're looking again for a historic preservation consultant to continue talking to all the Affordable Housing Trust, whatever town boards, an architect. We have suggested that they use what's called a preservation architect to go assess the house. Not just any architect who has no experience in historic preservation. And then what's not in here is we would have this historic preservation consultant also consult with the structural engineer that they will almost definitely need to have go through the house. And she would then help guide, preserving historic elements of the barn and maybe the house as this project goes forward. And we have told them that the historical commission would be willing to donate a portion of our CPC funds in the future towards rehab of the barn and maybe the house. So I feel like we really need this preservation, historic preservation consultant to work with the architect, the structural engineer, the Affordable Housing Trust, and us as to what should be preserved with flexibility, knowing it's an affordable housing project. That's, we understand that they need flexibility to do that. So that's what this request is for.
I think it's really great that you were looped in for this. The Affordable Housing Trust is sort of at sea with what to do with the project. I mean, I would hate to see that house being torn down just because of ignorance or without any professional assessment. I don't know how much assessment you're gonna get for this amount of money. But to at least interpose, and Bartlett said that the consultant said, oh yeah, the house definitely has elements that are, historic. Often you go into places like that have been, renovated over the years and, it's usually just surfaces and you can't really see, beneath that. And so anyway, I'm definitely for this.
And I would encourage everyone to look on the Community Preservation Coalition website. They have under success stories, some housing success stories. There's one in Sunderland, Sanderson Place. And it's the same kind of thing. It was this house that when you look at it, it looks small, but I think they put in 2 or 3 units and it's beautiful. And I think there were like 4 partners to the project and one was the Affordable Housing Trust. So there are ways to do it. It may be new to Littleton, not the kind of thing we've ever done, but there are certainly examples out there of how to do this. But they're actually, it's quite interesting. I was kind of looking through them the other day.
I mean, one of the things that may happen is that they bring on, they probably should, they bring on a development partner who then would need to be governed by this kind of work, so.
Yeah, and a lot of them, that's what they do. It's a development
Yeah,
place that
and,
takes over.
and to get affordable housing, you have to have some input
Mhm.
that is usually land or structure or whatever. So, Bartlett was saying, possible between the house and the barn, they could make 9 2-bedroom units or whatever, so. It's too bad it's not here. I mean, if, this is such a modest amount. If it was a large amount, I'd say, yeah, let's wait until we can attend a meeting, but
I think that,
Well, this is just to keep it going.
Yeah.
We need her her input to keep it going.
Any other questions or make a motion?
I'll make a motion that the committee approve the eligibility request for the historic preservation consultant to perform follow-up consultations for 260 Foster Street, the Durkee Farmhouse and Barn.
Motion, a second? Saul seconds. All in favor of the motion is read, please say aye.
I
Opposed? Unanimous again. All right, I'm gonna roll here. Thank you, Linda, for bringing those.
Thank you, everybody.
Are we doing the funding?
Yeah, let's do.
Oh, funding, yes, sorry,
1,275.
Correct.
Right?
that's correct.
I'll make a motion that the commission, I keep saying commission, Concom's a bad influence on me. The commission, motion that the committee approve the funding application for the historic preservation consultant, to perform follow-up consultations for 260 Foster Street, the Durkee Farmhouse and Barn.
To be
From the-
taken out of the,
From the Historic Preservation Reserve in the amount of $1,275.
cut and paste totally.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Dan,
do you
it's so
second
close
that?
to the 1,120.
We have a motion and a second. Everyone in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Again, unanimous. All right. Projects in the pipeline, I haven't heard, no.
So I'll have 3 applications at our next meeting. One will be for an invasive plant control project at the Frog Pond next to Long Lake. It'll essentially involve creating an inventory / assessment of the site, as well as like a first phase of invasive plant control. A second application will be to replace the walkway going through the Frog Pond, which is like a mess right now. People.
Now, how does that tie in with what the highway department is doing to the Frog Pond?
So the highway department will be performing dredging of the Frog Pond, and they'll be doing a little bit of site work with trees to get access. So this, I'm hoping, will be in the same permit package that goes before Concom with an NOI, notice of intent filed. So if we can get all of this work into that one filing and then have the money to back up the actual projects, would be great. But in terms of phases, the dredging would probably take place first. And the other 2 projects, like the walkway, I wouldn't want to put that in until the dredging's done, so no machinery destroys it. But the invasive plant control, an assessment, and an inventory could probably be done around the same time. And then work could be done shortly after too. So those 2 applications will be coming forward. I've already gotten them written. I'm just kind of gathering pictures and cost estimates right now, but one will be more of a recreational side project. So I'll probably float that over to Alicia and Tim once that's written up.
Quote, that's a pun.
Hello. And then the invasive part will be an open space project. And then the third project that I'll be submitting, which I'll be circulating to Linda shortly, is the historic gravestone preservation project. Another phase of that.
West Lawn.
So
West Lawn or the old?
West Lawn.
Oh, okay.
So there'll be 3 projects next time around for a January meeting, and a lot of picture taking and cost estimate gathering ahead of me here.
Yeah, pictures.
Too bad they couldn't have dredged it this summer.
Yeah.
Would have been easy.
All right.
Water.
So it'll be good. I mean, I know Long Lake Neighborhood Association's been really dying to get this done for a while, and you walk through there now and there are literally just so many hazards. Somebody's gonna break their leg walking through there, so I think it'd be a great project, for us to fund, and I'll be getting it to you soon.
Well, it seems a shame for all the work that they did to put it together and then just let it.
Yeah, it's been over 20 years,
Like that.
21, so.
Oh, is it, but who did it? Was it the water department?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, all those swales that they put down the water, you know, Saul, is there anything coming up for you guys?
No,
Quiet.
yeah, no, I think we've got enough on our plate between, the tennis courts, the fields, and then, the department is moving over to the 36 King Street building probably next summer, so.
Oh, sure.
How is that coming out? I mean, I see it's been painted, but I don't know what's going on inside.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, most of the work is done, they're waiting on HVAC units that are back ordered, and a couple other things that they need to get done, so, but, yeah, as far as I know, I've not been inside since early in the project. I think it's moving along and they're meeting regularly. We may have some things over there at some point.
Okay. Very good. Public comment, Mr. Ross, do you have anything further? I don't really, I haven't heard from FinCom. I'm assuming pretty soon we'll start getting some messages from them for next year's budget. They did ask about, our select board actually put something out to all committees about presenting, what we've been working on, but I kind of feel like the budget will be kind of it's all gonna be melted. You're not gonna have enough time to, put something together, but we're very reactive. We react to people's budgets, so, they kind of know what we're doing, so I kind of just.
I think part of that was they wanted the various committees and boards to talk to one another more. So that we don't get to town meeting where one board is not supporting another board or whatever.
Well, the way it was worded was that they invited boards to come before them, the select board, so they can help the boards accomplish their goals. That was the way it was worded.
As long as they agree with that.
Or discuss the goal.
Yeah.
But we're a little different, whereas a
Oh, yeah, we
facilitating
don't
board,
really.
we don't propose projects, we
Right.
facilitate them, we
Right.
don't propose them.
No, and Steve Venuti from the beginning has wanted like a 5-year plan from us, and we can't do that
Yeah.
because we don't know what's coming before us.
Right. All right, and it's projects that come up that's why we have CPAs for.
Mhm.
So, I suspect at some point we'll be getting something from, especially if we talk to them about these projects, so. We'll be, budget season's gonna happen.
It's one of our super Saturday morning, presentation.
Carolyn,
Yes.
that reminds me, this fall, I took a course with, the Massachusetts Land Trust Coalition through UMass, and it was, workshop-y, all about different mechanisms and strategies for land preservation. And it culminated in a weekend retreat in Plymouth. And I met some really cool people through it, including, somebody who did a lot of CPA work in Plymouth, which is a huge town, by the way. It's really remarkable. It's a really unique town. And they have thousands of acres that they've preserved and stuff like that. Anyway, he had really incredible proactive strategies for finding and negotiating with landowners and stuff like that, including and I want to talk more with him about it. The course is completed, and I have all these people that I'm thinking I want to stay in touch with, and he's one of them. His name is Peter something. And one of the things that he said he did was that they would have executive session for the community preservation committee so that they could actually reach out to landowners and begin overtures and in a proactive way that would be way ahead of real estate and way ahead of, in some cases, the landowner's intent to like move on things and start basically start the education process really early. and get them, sort of, wedded to the idea of making a deal with the town to purchase their land. So, I really liked his ideas and admired what they had done in the town. So, I'll let you know what.
Especially on the heels of the Webster property, because that's basically what Lyle and Gretchen wanted to do, is preserve their legacy.
Right, right. And then, yeah, I think there's a story there. Or intersection points too, because, they've been over backwards to be patient with all the messiness that followed from different angles. But if they had a through line and a partner in us, right from the beginning, it might have gone differently. Or it might go well. for the next
I know when
person.
the planning board was talking about it's just gone out of my head. It's this technique of banking land and this and that, and Amy came to speak to us and we sort of looked at her and said, well, are there like, because you get the feeling that everything's been developed and we said, is there anything that, is worth really, going after? She said, oh my, yes, unequivocally. And I don't know what properties there were, but, anyway.
Well, one of the teachers of the course was with the Sudbury Valley trustees, and they've been a good partner with us. And the Harvard Conservation Land Trust or whatever. The Smith property, for example, is a real success story there in terms of partnerships and stuff. And we didn't barely raise a finger to make that happen. We had so much help from Sudbury Valley trustees to get that going. I don't mean just barely lifted a finger. It's that, it was brought to us as sort of a whole complete package, which was
The
really.
legwork was already done.
I guess, yeah, anyway. So that's another person I have to stay in touch with and group. And if we don't have ideas, they'll tell us what's on in their little file.
But also, your idea from your Sudbury, from your Plymouth connection is you gotta get the idea in the person's families. Gotta get it in front of them, and they don't have to just sell for real estate.
Yeah, and
But it's a long process. Real estate is a lot faster outcome.
right, and he also had stuff, I forget what it was right now in my memory, but he said they used their administrative funds for all sorts of stuff that helped smooth the process and move things along. Oh, that's what it was. They'd tell the landowners, don't worry about chapter 31 payback. We've got you covered, or something like that. Stuff that would be totally game changing to a nervous landowner talking to their siblings, oh, what are we gonna do about the taxes or whatever? And he said, there's so many things you can do to just make worry go away for the landowner.
Interesting. Yeah, something to think about. Thank you for the report.
Yeah.
And again, just one of the last things here is still have to think about our budgets for the next year and what, if we need to, load something into like recreation, for getting more recreation projects rather than we try to be very even-handed, but we may not be able to do that, so we may have to think about it a little bit. A little bit more. But that'll be coming up next year. Anything final before we do our next future meeting? Will be January 15th. That's the third Wednesday. All goes well.
January what?
15th. Mhm. Anything last or before we have a motion to No, that's what,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
any motion to adjourn, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone.